You wake with your tongue stuck to the roof of your mouth. The water skin is almost empty. The pool near camp has shrunk into warm mud. Animal tracks cover the edges, but there is no fresh water left to drink. There is no tap, no well pump, no bottled supply arriving tomorrow. Only heat, distance, memory, and a question that cannot wait. Where is the next water? So how did ancient humans find water during a drought? The first answer: it is not dramatic. They tried not to wait until the last drop was gone. Thirst becomes dangerous quickly. As the body loses water, physical effort becomes harder, thinking slows, and judgment weakens. A person who waits until collapse is already less able to search. The real skill was recognizing decline early. A pool becomes shallower, mud replaces open water. Animals begin visiting at different times. Trips to the source take longer, the water tastes worse. These changes turn a familiar place into a warning. Ancient humans did not need a rainfall chart, they had repeated experience. They remembered which pools lasted longest, which valleys held shade, which river bends stayed damp, which springs failed first, and which roots became deadly when the dry season deepened. Water knowledge was not a single trick, it was a map stored in people. Archaeology shows how strongly water shaped ancient movement. At Alathar, in the Nufud Desert of Saudi Arabia, researchers found human and animal footprints beside an ancient lake. The tracks date to roughly 120,000 years ago. Humans, elephants, camels, and other animals had all moved through the same watery landscape. The researchers interpreted the human visit as brief, perhaps part of travel through the region rather than permanent settlement. That moment matters because it shows a basic pattern. When water appeared in a dry land, animals gathered. Humans followed the same opportunity. A lake was more than a place to drink. It was a landmark, an animal crossing, and a corridor through otherwise difficult territory. But what happens when the lake begins to disappear? The simplest response is movement. Do not remain beside a dying pool merely because it was useful last month. Move toward the next remembered source, or everyone can still walk. That decision may have required older people. A young adult might know the current camp. An elder might remember a drought from decades earlier, a hidden spring, or a route linking several weak sources. We cannot identify one prehistoric person making that decision. But long-term landscape memory would have been extremely valuable wherever rainfall was unpredictable. Knowledge could function like stored water. The second defense was reading the land. Water moves downhill. Green vegetation in an otherwise dry area can suggest moisture. Insects, birds, and large animals often concentrate around water, although following them blindly can also lead toward danger. A dry stream channel may still contain damp sediment below the surface. Rock hollows can preserve rainwater after exposed pools have vanished. None of these signs guarantees success, and archaeology rarely preserves the moment when someone points at greener grass and begins digging. These are practical reconstructions based on how landscapes work and how experienced foragers use environmental clues. The strongest evidence is usually not the clue itself. It is where people chose to camp, travel, and return. Water sources organize movement. During drought, that organization becomes tighter. More animals visit fewer places. More people may depend on the same remaining pools. A good water source can become crowded, dirty, or contested. Finding water was only half the problem, you also had to reach it safely. Imagine a group leaving camp before sunrise. The adults carry tools and small children. They travel during the cooler hours to reduce water loss. They avoid unnecessary detours. They rest in shade when the heat rises. They do not spread too far apart because one wrong turn could separate someone from the route. The goal is arriving with enough strength to move again if the source has failed. Then comes the problem of carrying water. Human hands are poor containers. A leaf folds. A hide leaks unless prepared carefully. Wooden vessels decay and almost never survive in the archaeological record. But one ancient solution does survive: ostrich eggshell. At Diepkloof Rock Shelter in South Africa, archaeologists found engraved ostrich eggshell fragments dating to about 60,000 years ago. Researchers argued that many fragments came from intentionally marked containers. Recent and historic Kalahari hunter-gatherers used emptied ostrich eggshells as flasks for storing and transporting water. The ancient fragments do not preserve every journey they made, but they provide strong evidence that people were turning a natural shell into portable storage deep in the Middle Stone Age. That changes the survival equation. Without a container, your movement is tied closely to the next drink. With a container, you can leave water behind and still carry part of it with you. You can support a child, cross a dry stretch, bring water to someone who cannot travel, or store a small reserve. A container does not create water. It creates time. People may also have obtained some moisture from food, fruits, underground plant parts, fresh meat, and other resources can contain water. In some dry environments, moisture-rich plants can reduce how often a person needs to drink directly. But this should not become a fantasy about surviving indefinitely without water. Food moisture helps, it does not make severe dehydration disappear. The body still needs water, especially during heat and heavy movement. Another strategy was reducing loss. Travel in the morning or evening. Rest during the hottest hours, use shade. Avoid carrying unnecessary weight. Keep children from exhausting themselves. These behaviors leave almost no archaeological signature, but they follow a simple truth ancient people would have felt directly. The same journey costs more water at midday than it does at dawn. Drought also changes social behavior. A spring known to one family may become important to several groups. Visitors may need permission. Relatives may share access. Strangers may be watched carefully. Conflict is possible, but cooperation is also possible. A person who knows one source may need information about another. Families connected across a landscape have more options than a single isolated camp. Research on prehistoric and historic Arabia shows that communities responded to increasing aridity with mobility and management of water sources. Those populations were later than the earliest hunter-gatherers, and their solutions were not identical everywhere. But the larger principle is consistent. When water becomes scarce, survival depends on organizing movement around it. Sometimes the correct decision was not to search harder, it was to leave the region. Human occupation in Arabia repeatedly expanded during wetter periods when lakes and wetlands appeared, then contracted when conditions became more arid. The landscape opened and closed. Ancient humans did not conquer every desert permanently. They entered when routes were possible and withdrew when water networks failed. That is an important correction to the heroic survival story. There was no guaranteed hidden spring, no universal method for squeezing water from dry ground, no ability to ignore human physiology. Some droughts killed people. Some groups became trapped between failing sources, and vulnerable people could not complete the journey. Survival was never certain. The successful strategy was a chain of smaller decisions. Notice decline early. Remember several sources, not one. Move during cooler hours. Read vegetation and terrain. Carry water when containers are available. Use food moisture without mistaking it for a complete substitute. Maintain relationships beyond one camp. And leave before weakness removes your choices. This is the counterintuitive answer. Ancient humans did not usually survive drought by discovering water at the final dramatic moment. They survived by making sure the search began before desperation. The most important water tool may not have been a digging stick or an eggshell flask. It may have been memories shared across generations. A child learns where the spring is. An adult learns when it begins to fail. An elder remembers where the group went the last time it failed completely. Together, those memories become a route. You stand beside the muddy pool again. It is not empty yet. That is exactly why the group leaves now. Someone lifts a child. Someone carries the remaining water. An elder points toward a line of dark hills beyond the heat. There may be a spring there. There may not. But the group is still strong enough to find out. And during a drought, leaving with strength may be the difference between searching for water and dying beside the place where it used to be. If you enjoyed this journey into the distant past, subscribe for more stories about ancient humans and human evolution.